I want to talk about career management. And I want to talk about, because there's a lot of things you can outsource in your life, and your career isn't one of them. So you need to take ownership. But it's really nice to be working with organizations who are helping facilitate that process. And I always think you need to take extreme ownership of what you do, all the accountability in the world. It's on you. But part of that accountability is also communicating with your HR department, your boss, your management team about how you can work collectively to get you a better career, to get you better behaviors, to get you better outputs as far as production is concerned. And so I want you to think for a second. You can even go in the chat and give me a hey on this if it's true. Have you ever gotten to a performance review and you're getting feedback and you're wondering, what the hey? Never heard that before, right? Feedback should be timely. It should not be a surprise. Or maybe you're doing okay, but you wonder, well, I'd love to learn more. I'd love to do better. I'm just not sure how to do that. I don't know what skills I need to improve, or the degree to which I need to improve them, or I don't know what the steps are, or I'd love to have opportunities like real live bullets in the gun where I'm actually doing and creating deliverables that are valuable, not just off practicing on the sidelines when I want to be in the game, coach. So have you ever had that situation? And I know very few of you, and I would say less than 10%, let's call it single digits. And I'm drawing that percentage from my experience working with organizations that I think effectively develop their people. I would say that less than 1 in 10 employees actually has some type of career development model in place that helps facilitate their learning and growing, or at a minimum, gives them feedback on how they're doing, where they can look at some measured performance metrics, stats, specific behaviors with definitions of how they're performing. I would say less than 1 in 10. And I've worked for Anderson Consulting, which is now Accenture. I worked there 10 years. I had a very nice career development model. I saw good practice there. I went to another company where I personally built the career development model, a company where Kara and I met. And people had structure. They knew what the levels looked like. They knew what behaviors they needed to attain, what that looked like. They knew what objectives to attain and working toward those. So today what I want to do is I want to break this talk up into 2 small sections. 5 what I would call preliminaries that I just want you to think about. These are questions that I want you to ask yourself to see, is this in place and how can I get this in place? Because if you have these, then the next 5 things are the steps that you need to make sure are in place and the structure around you. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And this is a prelude into something I'm diving in deeper tomorrow. If you're here with me live, I'm going to be meeting with members of my leadership coaching program. This is live November 7th, 2024. If you're watching this after November 7th, 2024, on November 8th, I'm going to be meeting with those leaders to talk about performance reviews in their entirety. And this is the first step to getting it right. Okay, number 1, this is a prerequisite. And you hear me talk about this a lot. What does success look like in terms of behaviors I need to have and outputs I need to produce? So I'm not talking about like in a year from now, I'm going to have to produce 200 widgets. That's part of it. But I'm also talking about your growth from a personal perspective will look like in a year. You will carry yourself this way. You will be able to communicate with the executives at this level. You will be able to, so that your boss can clearly say with a great deal of objectivity, not just subjectivity, that you are able to do that. And so what does success look like? Now, I know a lot of you, when you come to the show, which I love, and you hear me talk about when you interview for jobs, before you take any job, like the number 1 question I'd love to ask is, what does success look like? If I take this job in a year from now, what will I have produced that you will think is a raging success? And it's the same kind of thing when you walk in the door. So if you've taken a new job, this is one of the first prereqs I would want in order so I know I have the bogey. It's on the wall. I can see it. I know what I need to work toward. But it's not just you're a salesperson, produce $1 million. No, it's you need to be able to run the sales presentation effectively without aid. You need to know all 87 different rebuttals that they have. That is knowledge. It's a behavior, being able to respond to an objection, and it's a skill set. So that's what I'm talking about. Number one, success. Number two, this one it might be the number one sin. The number one sin. This goes for yourself. I want you all to pause for a second. Write this down because it's going to sound incredibly obvious, but only after I say it. What is your level and what level are you shooting for? And you might be wondering, well, what does that mean? Well, how many of us go into something and think we should be doing better? If you've ever done anything in your life and you thought you should be doing better, you made this mistake. Does that resonate? Well, why is it taking me so long? Because you are a beginner. Well, I should just know. Who says? But guess what? It hurts even more when your boss expects you to know something and you don't. Expects you to be able to do something and you don't. And you know who's guilty of this? This guy. I've hired a lot of people. And then I wonder, well, why the hell can't you do that? That's just so simple. Doesn't everybody know that? No. Right? So we forget what it's like not to know what we know. But if we're managing people, we make this mistake because we don't properly label them, because we don't properly benchmark them. We hire people who are new to us and we make assumptions about their level of proficiency. And so until we've been able to actually observe somebody for a long period of time, are we able to properly level them to say, you are here. So how many of you, show of hands, make this mistake? And you think you should be better than you are, but the problem is maybe you're doing just great. You just mentally labeled yourself more advanced than you were. The problem is if your boss does this, you think you're performing worse than you are, or you didn't take the proper steps to get yourself to the level that you should have been. So I've hired a whole bunch of people to try to do my social media for me, like people that work at Mile Walk. And I just expect, well, geez, I've got so much of it out there. Can't you just look at it? Don't you know what this stuff is? Can't you just write it? Don't you know there's a 7-point structure for when you put a social message together that you need to poke them this way, tell them this, and give them this? And how hard can that be to get right? Well, turns out it's pretty hard because I sent a lot of messages out and I sent a lot of stuff out and there's a lot of different things you need to know. So if I improperly benchmark somebody, number one, I have expectations that are higher than they should be. But even worse is I'm not giving them the proper training and coaching along the way. This is a big freaking deal. Okay? Do you know what you are and do you know what you're shooting for? And how are you going to know if there's no definition around what a beginner is, what an intermediate is, right? What a more advanced person is, what a master looks like, or the ultimate maestro. Okay, number 3 is prerequisite. What are the skills and performance gaps between my current level and my target level? Now, if you don't know this, and you don't know what level you are, this becomes really hard. But if you don't even know what the skill and performance gaps are, first thing you got to know is, well, what are the skills I need? And the second thing is, what's the skill? Well, you want me to make the sales presentation. That's right. That's not a skill. Communication is the skill. So I need to grow my communication skills, my presentation skills, my persuasion skills. Well, what's the performance gap? Well, first off, you got to string words together. Second thing is you got to use the right elements, the right power. You got to drop the bombs at the right time. All of that stuff is a skill that needs to be practiced. Well, if the first goal is you just need to understand the product, okay, well, that's product knowledge. That's a skill. And there's a gap because you don't know what the product you're selling is. Well, the second thing is then you need to know how to evaluate what the customer needs That's an evaluation. That's a skill. Then you need to take the information and you need to put a sales argument together. That's a skill. Then you need to articulate the sales argument back to the person. That's a skill. Then you need to be able to respond to all the rebuttals. That's a skill. So all of these things you don't work on them all at once. You usually work on this linearly. So if you don't have the definition, how are you going to know what to work on? Because I could get somebody so much better, so much faster, because one skill makes the next skill easier, makes the next skill easier to build. If you're building them out of order, that's bad. If you don't know what the inventory is, that's really bad. Okay, who's tracking so far? We're just in the warm-up phase. Okay. All right, next thing. Once you get the plan in place to build those skills. So like using my sales example, right? You got to understand the product knowledge. Well, okay, well, what's the plan to build the skill of the product knowledge? Do you have a plan, or are you just kind of clicking around the website and talking to the product developers to figure out what the product does? Well, that could be a step in the plan, but maybe there's a better way for you to learn it. Like, what does our product do? What are all the competitors' products do? Why doesn't our product do that? Okay, next thing. Okay, well, now I've got to present it. Well, is the product knowledge the most important thing? Is the sales presentation the most important thing in a seller probably, in a marketer probably? But in an engineer, in order to build a product, if you're a software engineer, you need to understand the software language. The language itself has nothing to do with the product. You're using a language to build a product. So what is the plan to build the skills? You might be going to software engineering training school, or you might be putting an inventory of different tests you want to take or parts of the language you want to learn or whatever it is, but that needs to be sequenced. This is a skill building exercise. It's not if I just say to somebody, go out and sell the product, that's not really helping them build the right skills. The person who has better communication skills, the person who has better customer management skills, the person who understands human psychology better and has better persuasive skills or understands the sequence and how you present something is going to sell it better. Those are the skills I want to build. So is there a plan to actually do that? This in, dare I say, 99% of the case is missing. Because what can I show of hands here? Is every company you've ever worked at, what did they want to do? Learn it on the job. Yeah, they might have sent you to training school. They might have sent you to learn, but much of what you're going to do is you're going to learn on the job because there's no plan. And then what happens? You learn slower. Because why? Because you don't have a plan. All right, next thing and last thing that you absolutely need is what's the plan to deliver the outputs? So there's a plan for the skills because I have to grow the skill. And then there's a plan for the outputs. What's the difference? Well, I want you to learn these skills. I want you to learn the product. I want you to learn the sales presentation. I need you to learn how to handle, retrieve, and knock out the rebuttals. Those are all skills. And I need you to build those. But we need to work toward a plan that says you will be selling and actually making cold calls, sales presentations, responding to proposals, or whatever it is by some date. There's got to be a plan. This is like a work plan. This, many of you have. What are you missing? This. What else are you missing? This. What else are you missing? This. And so on, right? So this is usually what you have. But you're missing all the other stuff that's actually helping you grow the skills and looking at and sequencing them in a priority that's going to make you better faster because you're learning the right skill in the right sequence. This is the basics. You're lost without this, or you don't know how to get measured, or your boss or management team doesn't know how to measure you. Then you go to your performance review, and what happens? You're surprised. You learn slower than they thought. Or worse, you were bad at your job because they thought you were an intermediary when you really were a beginner. Tracking so far? Fan of Andy's tracking. I love that. That's my word. I know I like that word, right? Are we tracking? Okay, hang on. Let me make sure I got my cards in order here. All right, now the next piece, which is really what I wanted to drive home today, 5 of these absolute vehicles of communication, requirements, call them whatever you want. I call them must-dos. You've got to have this in place. Now, this gets you in the right starting point. This gets you to the starting line. Okay? This is the difference between this 5 and this 5. This gets you to the starting line in shape. This are the key success factors that, when in place, create the environment for you to thrive. Okay? That's these 5. This is what you got to do. Now, all right, so ask yourself, what is the list of skills I need to develop? So what are those skills? So going back to that sales presentation, it could be, well, I need product knowledge. I need to understand. Maybe it's industry trends, setting up something that allows me to learn that. Okay, it's communication skills, it's writing skills, it's speaking skills, it's persuasion skills, it's whatever it is. Relationship building skills, customer management skills. These are all skills. They're all different. They're all different. So if you don't have one of these, you're host. Okay, that's the first thing. The good news for you is I wrote a whole book about this. It's called The Zebra Code. But I give away free what I call my leadership roadmap. It's a skill building inventory and assessment you can take, and it's instructions on how you can put a plan together that helps you with this. Okay, that's number 1. And Kara, if you're here with me live, she has it pinned in the chat. All you need to do is click it, put your name, email address in, and we will send it to you. It's a 45-page booklet. It's really good. It will really help you with this. Second thing is, as you might have imagined, where am I now? Where am I going? And what skills do I need to work on? And what are the priorities? So if I'm a beginner, if Andy hires you to do his social media circulation, well, first thing you're going to need to do is understand my messaging. You're going to need to understand a structure of what makes for good resonating messages, right? Engage them this way on their problem or their aspiration, then ask them what, then debunk a myth, then tell them whatever, then drive them to the whatever you want them to watch or do. Give them instruction. There's some sequencing. Okay, so where are you? Anybody who starts with me starts at 0, right? But you need to start at 0. So I have to take you through everything you need to learn. And then we need to get you to an intermediary. And an intermediary is somebody who understands the messaging, understands whatever, knows the formula for the sequence of the social context and text or circulation or whatever, right? So where are you now and what are we shooting for? And by when do we need to attain that? Just because I say you need to improve in this area isn't going to do you any good. By the end of next week, by the end of the month, by the end of the quarter, and by the end of the semi-annual, and by the end of the year, you should be at these levels of proficiency. And what is the date which you'll attain the level of proficiency? If you don't have dates, isn't this akin to what's that common expression, right? A dream without or a goal without a date is just a dream, or whatever, whoever said that. But it's kind of like that, right? So you need something to shoot for. So like what I do with my workshops, I have a target date for something. I reverse engineer, go backwards, look at all the pieces that need to be in place, all the steps I need to go through. And then every iteration of anything that I do more than one time, the next time I look back at the previous time and I say, what was my level of proficiency? What were my level of outputs? What are the areas I need to improve? What are the areas that will, in this case, drive more communication, drive more community engagement, drive more people, maybe drive more sales, drive more referrals, whatever it is I'm shooting for. And then what skills do I need to build? Do I need to build a better product? No, I probably need to build better marketing skills. So in this case, I'm going to be working on those. I know between now and whatever, January 6th, I need to do that. So you got to have a date. If you don't have the target dates, how are you going to have anything to shoot for? And what's going to drive your skill development behavior and your output behavior? So you need the target dates. The other things are If you don't have the specific actions to take, how are you ever going to reach the proficiency? So what are the specific actions? So if I said, going back to my example with the sales, if I said you need to be able to put the presentation together for the sales, that's one thing. But it's better if I say, okay, by the end of the first month, you should have complete command of how the product works. By the end of the second month, you should have the sales script down and the rebuttals down. The way to get the rebuttals down, as an example, me just plucking one out, is the more phone calls you make and the more customers you speak to, the more objections you'll get, the faster your inventory will grow. Okay, so this action is going to be tied to you developing objection handling skills, or you getting repetitions to present your product, your service, your whatever is going to help you with your presentation skills. Number one, it'll get you more comfortable. Number two, you will learn, and we can evaluate, we'll tape it, we'll watch it, we'll record it, we'll whatever, right? We'll improve the script and all. But these are steps. Some steps might be, we're going to send you to training the week of whatever. Some of the steps could be, and we're going to evaluate your performance each week. Or I want you to do this on your own until, or we're gonna meet every day and I'm gonna review all your calls, all your objections. We're gonna meet. Those are actions we're gonna take. Then by the end of the next week, we shouldn't need to meet every day. We should only need to meet every other day. After that, maybe it's once a week for 5 minutes. Whatever the specific actions are, this needs to be put in place because you will not know. That's actions, that's reactions, it's feedback. It's you should be able to handle it on your own. What does it actually mean when you look at something like this? The skill and the level of the skill, this has to be defined. So if I'm shooting for you to be proficient enough, then how am I grooming you across the way, or how are you grooming yourself to be able to reach that? But you also need to know the behaviors and the outputs and the definition of what proficient looks like. Proficient could be, you should be able to do this on your own without asking for my help by a certain date. So these are the kind of things that are rarely in place. And then the last piece, the last must do is, what are the dates? So when are we going to actually have an evaluation of my performance and make sure that I'm within the rails? The guardrails are there. We're making sure that I'm not straying, that I'm moving forward, I'm moving down the tracks. If you don't have these if your checkpoint is once a year at the end of the year, you're not going to be very good at keeping on track and on plan, because you're not getting the real-time feedback. You're not making the adjustments. The faster I get you the feedback, the faster you make the adjustments. So one of the things that if you ever want to grow, let me leave you with this, is the more repetitions you can have at anything, the faster you'll grow. The more repetitions. So in the cold calling example, if you only make 5 a day, you're not going to grow as fast as if you make 25 a day. That's number one. Number two, if there's an instruction manual that can be created, you're going to go faster. So let me tell you a little story. This little story, I'm going to give you the abridged story. It's in the delegating chapter, and it's right on page 235 of the Zebra Code. If you don't have this yet, well, this story is in full, in all its glory. And when Kara started with Mile Walk, this is in delegation, and this same thing for when you want to grow your skills. She started as a researcher that lasted 2.5 days. Then I told her your days of surfing the internet and loading up the Excel spreadsheet or that served as our CRM database are over. I need you to get on the phone and start speaking to job candidates to recruit them, evaluate them, interview them. We need to recruit them. And she had no experience with doing this. So the more times she could go at this, the better she would get. But she also didn't know what questions to ask. So guess what? We made her a list. She also didn't know how to follow the sequencing of the dialogue based on the responses to the questions that she was asking. So in Kara-like fashion, and anybody who knows Kara knows she's a systematic person, so she put a flow diagram. So I said to her, don't worry about it. How tough can this be? You ask a question, there's a finite number of answers. Here's the answers. They'll either say yes, no, or maybe. If they say yes, then ask them this. If they say no, then you say that. If they say maybe, then you say this. And so basically, we built her a system, or she built herself a system from my knowledge of conducting these phone calls. Well, the more repetition she had at that, the faster she got better. It only took her a couple days, because a couple of days worth of phone calls, doing that, asking questions and seeing all the different variations, you get pretty good pretty fast. But if she does 2 of those a week, it's going to take her forever. So understanding her level of proficiency in conducting those calls is something that, you're at zero because you don't know anything yet. All right, how do we get you better faster? Here's the actions. Let's put together a structure. I need to teach you, so I'm gonna spend some time. We'll put together a structure you can follow. You can use that during the calls, execute it. We can update it. You update the notations based on what you're learning, what shorthand works for you, right? And the more and more you do that, then what would Kara and I do at the end of each day? She'd say, okay, I talked to these 3 people. I talked to these 7 people. Hey, this question came up. What? Okay, great. When somebody asks you that, you say this, bang, it goes in the model, and that's resolved. Well, after you do a few dozen of these, basically you've heard it all. That's what I'm talking about. If you don't have the skills you need to develop, she needed to develop the elicitation skills, the communication skills, right? She had communication skills, but these are different kind of communication skills. Where is she? She's at ground zero, right? Okay, we need you to be able to conduct these calls, basically have seen everything within a month. That's not even a tall order, because we had actions that were in place. What's the date by which you'll attain that? So we're able to define that. What are the specific actions? Well, the first thing is I need to explain to you what all of the inventory of things you need to get from them, how to ask the questions, all the answers they could give you, right? Then you need to practice it so that it's smooth. Right? You're also projecting your knowledge of our company, of our clients' companies, of our needs. And then she needs to be able to evaluate that. We could get that down. And then the checkpoints, we had those in place. So this is really important. And we're just getting to the point here where I'm ending this talk, but we're talking about these 5 things. If these 5 components are not in place, it's very, very difficult for you to grow your skills and progress your career. If you put a blueprint together like this, that's going to enable you to find the right information, it's going to be a lot more effective. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you're here with me live, we're going to go to the Q&A. If you're watching this on the recording, I'll see you next week. And if you're anybody who wants to check out the leadership coaching program that I have, I will be doing a session on performance reviews tomorrow. If you're watching this anytime after Friday, November 8th, 2024, you can get that recording. All right, hope you enjoyed it. See you next week.